way for myself and youth to be reached during this time. I say we do college in Zoom, high school, you do school in Zoom, some of us work from Zoom. Then you got church added on to that. That could be a lot. And so, listen, I'm zoomed out. To be completely honest, I praise God this is on StreamYard because I was like, please don't let this be on Zoom because I just can't do it. But I do think there is a better way. And I do think for the older pastors, this really gave them a snap to reality. Like, this is what technology is about. Before you was like, well, technology this, technology that. But now that you're led to use it day in and day out, they're not really too familiar. So for me, it's kind of hard to keep me engaged on Zoom, especially because I do it Sunday to Sunday. I do it for school, work, church. Listen, I love the Lord. Completely honest, I be zoned out because you do it so much. So I feel like there is a better way, and to each his own. What I brought to the table to my ministry is we need to break up these age gaps. For instance, I'm 18. As you know, youth is 13 to 21. I'm not interested in being on a Zoom with a 13-year-old. So what I said was it needs to be broken down 13 to probably about 16, 17, 18 to 21. Because at 18, you're legal. Like 18 to 21, we could talk about some things you can't talk about with a 13-year-old. And I think because we're on Zoom and we're going through the 13, 21, yeah, from 22 to 40, you got to keep that common ground because you have to be keeping in mind that you also have a 13-year-old on the line. So I kind of feel like that's what attracts me a lot because it's like, okay, 13, love them, but not too much I can relate right now in this season of my life with a 13-year-old.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely understand that. Does anybody else want to weigh in?
We've been virtual for a year now. And by this time, we all should have an idea of what works and what doesn't work. So it's different now because you don't have the people in the sanctuary with you while you're having church. We don't have that atmosphere, but you can see that they got comments, all that kind of good stuff. But studies show that people do not watch a full service. They don't actually sit there and watch. Even on Zoom, they don't actually sit there the whole time because trust and believe, when I host a Zoom, I cut my camera off because I'm not sitting in front of my laptop for 2.5 hours. Y'all over here talking, I'm over playing my Xbox. I'm just gonna be real. While y'all talking, that's just how it is. So we have to realize that while we have them engaged at that current moment, that we have to be impactful from beginning to end. So if that means you got to cut some things out of service, you got to cut some things out of service. Because they just said, my pastor and my bishop just said that when we get back together, we're not going to be in none of these conferences for 3, 4, 5 hours when we've been for an hour and a half. So whatever time frame you have where you connect with them, you have to connect with them and you have to reach them on their level. Because you can't sit here and talk to somebody who's just becoming into church about King James. Nah, switch it up. Give me that Message Bible. Give me that New Living Translation. Reach me on the level that I am, so then I can progress to get to the level that you are.
Great. Awesome. All right. Again, for those of you who are tuning in, feel free to leave your comments and questions in the comments, and we will get to them at the end. We'll have a time for Q&A at the end. All right. Next question. Do you feel as though your gifts are utilized in the church? And why do you think that is? Whether they are or whether they're not, why do you think that your gifts are not being utilized in the church?
So for me, I feel my gifts are being utilized in church, but sometimes I feel like they're being overly utilized. Because that plays back to the point, just because I bring an idea, don't mean I want to lead it. And so I know what I was called to do. I bring an idea for children. I wasn't called to children. I bring an idea for adults. I know my lane. I know my calling. I'm not trying to serve no age group that God did not call me to serve. If I bring you an idea It's an idea, you take it and run with it. But I do feel like my gifts are being utilized, but oftentimes, especially in this virtual space, as we were trying to gather the youth, I was bringing ideas. Well, Tiana, why don't you lead it? Well, Tiana cannot, because Tiana has a job, Tiana's in school, I just can't, and I pray God worked it out, and he worked it out. Every idea I bought, someone else ran it and ran it effectively. So I definitely feel like my gifts are utilized, but sometimes they're just overly utilized.
Okay.
And to speak to that, especially for those, like, I'm single, like I'm not married and I don't have children. So there can be this misconception, oh, you got a lot of time on your hands. You don't have certain responsibilities, certain commitments. So you must have all the time in the world to run with this idea and for your gifts to be exacerbated. So that is something that I observe. It's not something that's just exclusive to myself. So to the same point that was just made, I think there's part of that. And that's not to say that young adults who are married and or have children, that they don't experience that as well. But it is heightened. It is heightened for single people who are young and energetic, passionate, and about their business for the Lord, But also in answering that question, I do feel as though my gifts are utilized in my church and through my church outside of my church, outside the wall. So I appreciate that. That's and I answered that in a sense of pre-COVID. Since COVID, I feel a bit disconnected. So I'm still involved, but it's just not the same vibe. It's not the same feel. But I will say, I think the reason why my gifts are being utilized is because I'm very intentional. I am not going to wait for you to ask me what my gifts are. I'm not going to wait for you to ask me how can those gifts be used. I'm going to go to people and have conversation. I'm a firecracker. I'm there to ignite, light a flame, have a spark, and move in it. So, but it does make me think about what about individuals who do not have that comfort level to do that? How are we supporting those individuals to tap into their gifts?
Very good. Very good. All right. Anybody else? Nobody else has any comments? We'll move on. Whether currently receiving it or not, what do you need from your pastor the most? I actually want to hear from everybody on this one. What do you need from your pastor the most?
Support. I say I need support in my pastor's ear. Communication is the one thing that keeps us in the loop. It makes all relationships move good, mesh. And if you don't have proper communication, if you don't have the proper support, that's a relationship that's really not going anywhere. So if I have my pastor's support, if I can communicate properly with my pastor, I'm in a good position.
And I could definitely piggyback off of you, support. It would be nice, pick up the phone, call, hey, how you doing? We're in this tech savvy world. Emailing is great. Text messaging is great. But I would love for you to pick up the phone and call me, right? Especially because we're all going through this pandemic. Listen, it's easy for me to lie behind a text. But if you pick up the phone and call me, you gonna know. You may get more out of me in a phone call versus texting me. Because if you text me and say, hey, how you doing? My response is my Apple Watch, okay. But if you pick up the phone and we have a conversation, like, what do you need from me? What do you need more from me through this pandemic? And not even just through the pandemic in general, I feel like that would make things so much better. So support, I stand 10 toes behind.
Don't call me, text me. Don't call me, because I'm gonna look at my phone and be like, But no, we because my pastor, he gets an idea and it comes to him like that. And when it comes to him, he thinks it could be done like that, not knowing. No, Doc, I need a plan, because I want more in-depth detail sometimes. So, like, what's the vision behind what you're seeing? And 9 times out of 10, I'll get a text message saying, look at this, I like this. I'm like, sir, this is an hour and 35 minutes of a service. What about it did you actually like? So I can work on it. So a lot of times communication is good, but text me and be like, step by step what you like, and then I'll get there. But calling me,
I would say, communication, understanding, support, the whole 9 yards, because my pastor is, uh, the older generation, so they don't know a lot about, the technical background of what you need in this day and age with, Zoom, StreamYard. We right now we're using conference call, do service, and I'm just like, I'm on it a little bit, but I would say that
Do they mute their mics? Do they mute their mics?
No, they don't.
So you actually gotta dial in, like y'all don't see each other.
Stop.
Service the whole time.
They like this. Or
Oh man.
Okay.
Y'all gonna get us in trouble. I'm telling you.
I'm sorry.
One of your mothers is gonna see this and they're gonna
I'm not getting in trouble. It's all y'all.
Katrina said, I want no parts. Go ahead, girl.
No part. I would say connection. Like, I feel like I'm basically aligned with what's previously been said. I need connection. I'm used to that. In pre-COVID era, I was getting the connection, and now I feel so disconnected. And I think some of that, a degree of that, is beyond the control of my pastor, myself, and just what anybody can really do to some extent. It's just the world we're in. The world we're in right now because of COVID and everything. But it's a little different for me. I feel even more disconnected than not to compare to say, oh, y'all don't have it as bad as me. It's not like that. It's just there's a different disconnect for me because I was living abroad for a couple of years and I didn't finish my contract. I was supposed to be a little over, like almost 2.5 years, but it was about 2 years I was abroad and I had to come back to the US because of COVID. I didn't have any say in it, so I was evacuated. So when I came back, it was very abrupt. And it was just a lot to face when coming back. And it's like, here I was, hadn't seen family and friends, church family and my community for 2 years, and to come back and can't even like face-to-face connect and still anticipating that moment. So I mean, my disconnect is a bit more heightened. So yeah, connection is what I really need.
Very good. All great answers. This one, and I'm going to call you out, Rashara. I want to especially hear from you because we happen to share the same mentor. What does the mentorship mean to you?
Well, I feel I'm on the spot. Yeah. So the word mentorship, it means friend, consultant, parent, sister. It's all the whole 9 yards. That's what mentorship means to me. I can call them at 2:00 in the morning and they will answer, even though some people, they don't. But like I said, some mentors phone at those certain times. But I can say mine does.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to weigh in on that one? What does mentorship mean to you, and are you seeking it?
So, I talk about this a lot because that is something that I hold so close to my heart. When you're talking about mentorship, you're talking about a vessel pouring into you. You're talking about someone like Rashara said, someone you can call, someone who can guide you, right? I can't tell you how many inboxes I got of people asking if they could be my mentor. And I oftentimes be like, wow, I didn't know people do that, right? Because if God led me to you, he led me to you. I didn't think I just hop in somebody's DM like, hey, can I mentor you? But mentorship to me is someone who like literally can guide me. I don't need guidance every step of the way, but someone I can call. If I have a question, I could call you. You could give it to me. And I oftentimes say mentorship, you shouldn't have to question your mentor. You should not, when your mentor give you advice, you should not ever have to second guess, are they leading me in the right direction? And I oftentimes think that as youth, we kind of somebody say, hey, you want to be our mentor? They're kind of like, hey, yeah, they good, they know, because I was once that person, like, yeah, she known that she wasn't the one. She was known, she had money, but money don't mean it, but that's what people look at. And I was like, nah, she's not the one. And then finally, God just brought someone my way. Wasn't expecting, that was a season in my life where I wasn't expecting no one to come my way. I wasn't looking for a mentor, spiritual mom, wasn't looking for none of them. But God happened to just bring someone my way. So mentorship is something that is very serious. You cannot just call anybody your mentor. And you don't want to just be called anybody's mentee.
Right. That's huge. That's an interesting point that people are asking you to be their mentee. I mean, that a lot of people have the opposite problem, that they're not able to find a mentor and when they really need one. So is anybody experiencing that, or does anybody else want to weigh in on the question? What does mentorship mean to you?
Mentorship means to me transparency.
That part.
I want somebody that is honest and can let me know where their shortcomings were, where their flaws were, what the steps they got to get back on track, and how they're headed in the right spot. I don't want nobody I can have a mentor who looks down on me and talks down to me while to be upbuilding me at the same time. That's not a mentor. That's just somebody who's just, belittling you. And that's not what a mentor is. So transparency and mentorship goes hand in hand to me. Now, I've never, ever had somebody inbox me and ask if they could be my mentor. I'm waiting on that day to come because,
you get many of them. I get many of them.
Oh, man. I don't know. People don't like me those times. I don't know.
Oh, Tiana, that mean you grand, darling.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
In the Holy
future. They see something in the future. Yeah. So, let me check
but also as a mentor, you want, as to copy off of you, you want someone who's going to be transparency. And that also plays a part, right? Because we all, a lot of sins out here. I don't need no one who's like, well, if you go to 1 Peter, it's that. No. Let's take 10 steps back, because when you were 18,
what were you doing?
X, Y,
where was you at?
Hey, look, at 18.
We say you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. Okay. You're not supposed to have kids out of wedlock. Okay. Smoke, drink. We're supposed to do that. All right. We get it. We don't need you throwing it in our faces, because, again, you was doing it. And whether you want to admit it or not, you was doing it. I know you was doing it.
Whether they want to admit it or not, they still doing it. They just quiet about it.
Come on here.
Okay.
2 minutes is up. I'm sorry.
Well, this is no filter, so you good. You good. No filter.
You being transparent, our full transparent selves. That's great. Thank you all for that. Last question for our young people here. What is one thing you would like pastors to know about your generation?
That we love Jesus and trap music.
Oh!
Drop mic.
It's called balance.
It's called balance.
Thank you.
Total balance.
Okay, that's great. That was all right. Anybody else? What's one thing that you want pastors to know about? And it doesn't have to be your pastor specifically, but pastors in general, or leadership in general within the church, within the AME Zion Church. What do you want them to understand about your generation that you feel like they don't quite understand?
I know for me, I would greatly appreciate, and not just for me, but just for the whole body at large, body of Christ. As much as like my generation, I'm in my mid-30s, as much as my generation appreciates rethinking church, that does not mean that we don't simultaneously appreciate, acknowledge, and desire traditions. Now, I know earlier we were talking about traditions in a certain light, but I think that's when it comes to certain traditions that can hold us back from movement forward. But there are actually certain traditions that are beautiful, that are stem from our culture, and it's a positive thing. And sometimes you've got good traditions, but the manner in which it's carried out can make it seem like the tradition is just bad, and that's not really the case. So while there are definitely people part of my generation who don't acknowledge, don't appreciate, and don't desire to hang on to the traditions of our ancestors and the generations before us, there truly are many more of us who actually do desire, appreciate, and want to acknowledge it as we rethink church. And rethinking church, it doesn't mean dismantle everything and completely everything has to be brand new. It's as we go anew, what's going to support that newness that we can bring from the past and the present, that will not fight against that. There's so much more I could say on that, but to unpack that, what I mean specifically, but I won't for now.
That's awesome. Anybody else? What's one thing you would like pastors to know about your generation?
So oftentimes pastors say youth are the church of today, tomorrow. But I start to really wonder, do you really believe that? One thing I wish pastors knew about our generation is, yes, we are the church of today and tomorrow. So y'all just got to get with it. Pastors want us to some pastors want us to backpedal, right? They want us to go back to the olden age and know what they was. Listen, I had a pastor come up to me and said, do you have a Bible? Yeah, my phone. Well, you can have a Bible. No. You would like me to, but I should not. Okay. Because this is what we do. Okay. There's a lot of pastors who don't like youth going up with their phones and reading scriptures from their phones. How can you say we are the church of today and tomorrow? We do not see the world of technology. Heck, we got robots in the grocery store. So we just have to really stand on that. If you're going to say the youth and the young adults are the church of today and tomorrow, you need to really stand on that. Although we have the seasoned saints that tithe, yes, they tithe more than us, but that doesn't mean we won't be able to attend the church.
Wow. Great. Thank you. Thank you all so much for your comments. Again, anybody who's watching this stream on Facebook, thank you for joining us, and feel free to type any questions or comments in the chat, and we will revisit them at the end. We'll bring back all of our panelists at the end to address them if you have them. All right, so we are going to move on. Again, thank you, young adults and you, for joining us today. We're going to have you back on later on to answer one final question. But you can kind of chill out for now, and I'm going to ask our young adult pastor to join us. So I will remove you from the stream. Okay. So we have Reverend Darius Ballard, who is the pastor. Let me take off this question. Who is the pastor of Trinity AME Zion Church? And we appreciate you for being on here today. So the question that I have for you is, as a young pastor, do you feel as though your seniors do a good job supporting your needs?
I can say currently at the current church that I pastor, yes, they do a wonderful job at supporting my needs. But I can also speak to the other side of that question as well, because I've pastored 2 churches in my ministry. And the former church that I was at, my youngest member was 72 years old. And it's difficult trying to explain, or I would say trying to bring a church into the 21st century when everybody is stuck in the past. I'm coming in a young fireball. I was 22 years old at the time. I'm a young fireball preaching and swinging from chandeliers and jumping over pews and all this stuff. And older people, some older people are not enthused by that. And even if they are enthused by that, you're still not going to get that response from them that you need as a preacher, pastor, or anything like that. Even though we don't necessarily preach for the amens, it's nice to hear them. You can get burnt out over time if you're just preaching and preaching and preaching, and it seems as if you're preaching to yourself. I was driving 3 hours at the time trying to get to the church, and then I would get there, and it's like it's just me there. So a lot of times it's difficult whenever you're dealing with certain age groups of seniors in the church, because it's difficult for them to come up to speed as you would think. But then again, I had to reevaluate that situation as a young pastor, because I had to look at it as, okay, even though I'm doing things the way that I'm doing, apparently I'm not reaching them the way that they need to either. So you have to take and look at that situation from both sides of the fence. How can I readjust some of the things that I'm doing to also make the seniors of the church feel more welcome to join into what I have going on.
Awesome. And to put you kind of on the spot, I have one other. I want you to answer. What does mentorship mean to you?
Mentorship to me, for one, is being an example. If someone comes to me seeking mentorship, because this actually did happen before, one of the first questions that I asked that particular person is, what are you looking for in a mentor? Because that's a very vital question that you have to answer, or you should ask, I would say, to anybody that is seeking mentorship. What is it that they're looking for from you? Because apparently, if they're seeking you out as a mentor, they saw something in you worthy enough for them to come and approach you and ask you to be their mentor. On the flip side of that, as a mentor, I'm not going to be the one that, and I heard it earlier in the conversation, that's beating you down with the Bible, or acting as if I don't have a past, or acting as if I'm so wholly sanctified and all of these things that I can't relate to what you're dealing with or what you're going through. Because as your mentor, I'm not only supposed to show you the right way or the right things to do in life, I'm also supposed to be relatable to you. So in order for me to be relatable to you, I have to be able to be transparent. I have to be able to share some experiences. I have to be real with myself and with you. If I can't keep it 100 with you, I'm not doing you any good.
Wow. Great answers. Thank you for that. All right, so I'm going to keep you on the stream, and I'm going to add our other pastors, if you're ready. And all right. Hello, pastors. Thank you so much for joining us. I know most of you are muted. Hopefully you'll unmute when I answer these questions. All right. So the first question that I have for you all is, from 1 being mediocre and to 5 being booming, how would you rate your youth and young adult ministry at your church, and why? So from mediocre to booming, how would you rate your youth and young adult ministry at your church, and why?
I would probably say that mine is around a 4. So it's closer to the booming side. And the reason why, at the current church that I'm at, I have a wide variety of that youth age group, from toddlers to college students. And it's not 1 or 2. I have a bunch of young people. And the thing about having a bunch of young people and being a young pastor is, I'm not going to say it's easier for you to affect certain changes or do certain things, but as you get those young people attracted to church, and also get them where their attention is, where it needs to be within the church, you're able to do more stuff. You're able to accomplish more goals that you try to set. You're able to reach more young people. Young people are going to bring young people, especially if they're excited about what's going on, because they're going to want to share it. They're going to want to be involved with it. They're going to want to do all these things that's necessary to make sure that everybody around knows, hey, here at Trinity, we have this, that, and the other going on. We have this young pastor doing this, that, and the other. So you have to make sure that you keep their attention also.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I would say that the church where I pastor, we're not a 1. A 1 was mediocre. 5, I think, is booming. I don't think we're a 1. I don't think we're a 5. We're not booming. But I really think we're probably more of a 3. I think that we have ministry going on when it comes to youth, when it comes to young adults. We have things like Bible study for them, as well as some other ministry activities that is really just geared for their age. But I think that sometimes things happen. I'm not quite sure if it's people's schedules. I'm not sure sometimes if too much is put on one person and sometimes you can get burnt out. Or if sometimes in those kinds of relationships, people get hurt for some reason or another. And things begin to be inconsistent, wherein you start something and then it soon peters out or fades away. So again, not a 1, not a 5, a 3. We're getting better, but again, we've got some things to do to continue to grow and continue to be effective when it comes to reaching our youth and our young adults.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for your answers. So you all have heard what the youth and young adults had to say about connection and how to engage them in this virtual space. And even outside of this virtual space, I mean, we're moving toward a post-pandemic season. How do you currently connect with your young members? And I actually want to add on to that. Do you believe it's effective?
Well, right now with, I'm sorry, Dr. Miller.
Oh, no, ladies first, go right ahead.
Thank you. I feel so privileged. But with the focusing of Damascus at this time and reevaluating how to reach young members or young adults and youth outside the walls of the church. And a lot of what I heard earlier was concerns or being fed up or not engaging with traditional church. And that's very true. Our young people don't want big mama's pastor or granny's deacon or auntie's deaconess. Our young people want to feel like they're part without being set apart, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna be inclusive without being drawn back because of their age or because we don't feel or we don't trust them. One thing I learned when I started doing ministry, I did the smotherly motherly ministry, right? I came off as a mother type. So what I was doing, I wasn't ministering. I was treating young people and young adults and youth like my children, right? Because I have children in the same age group. I know it's hard to believe I look 21, but I do have children that are young adults and adults. Or young adults and youth. So I was treating ministry the same way. So I had to take some hard lessons and listen to some hard criticism, not from my children, because I wouldn't know which one was criticism or which one was just saying, Mommy, you're doing the most. But I had to listen to young adults and youth that I trust and home back and do ministry and be a minister with compassion. So when I started ministering in compassion, those that needed a motherly figure, that's what they saw. And those that wanted godly counsel, that's what they got. So engaging youth and young adults, I have to understand that I have to not be a smotherly motherly ministry, but be a ministry about God's work, building God's kingdom and understanding that everybody gauge Christ differently and not being comfortable in my box of tradition, but being uncomfortable with being out of the box and doing God's work.
Wow. All right, Dr. Miller.
Yeah, one of the things I've done at the church which I pastored, and definitely here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, great opportunity is a mentorship. I believe in mentorship, practice mentorship. That's what I did my dissertation on and working on mentorship. I grabbed our young people and made them actively involved. And I twisted a little bit from the way I was reared to rearing them in a different direction. I know you may, look, well, how do you mean? Some of y'all may remember when we was coming up, it was basically, okay, here's the scripture, you read it today, and you better not mess up. So there you was, like on Sunday, well, like, I don't know, it's not good. And you're like, it's gonna be worse if I mess up if I get home. So what I do, I don't give them you better get this before you get home. It's like, hey, come here, you can do this. I know you got it. So it was no more of the fifth Sunday is Youth Sunday. I do it every fourth Sunday at the local church. Every fourth Sunday, the youth gear up. They're a part of the worship experience. On the fifth Sunday, one of the youth bring a message, and I don't preach behind them. Oftentimes, we have the youth get up and say something, and then the pastor get up and, oh, yes, now the sermon for the day. No, I really make it all about them and highlight them. that works well, because when we put that on the schedule, I'm telling you, these young people, they'll go back to their high school, they tell their teachers, they tell their friends, they tell everybody they're speaking at the church. I've had young people that come to the church that were speaking that particular Sunday, their friends show up and they're like, oh my gosh, you were right. Your pastor really let you speak today. I can't believe it. It's like, oh my gosh. And so that is great. You know, they say, oh, I told you I pastored the bomb. I'm like, okay, yeah. But that makes them feel included and a part of the church. And because we have to begin, I believe that the way it was done for me, that was my start in public speaking in a local church. Didn't realize it when I was forced to read the scripture, forced to be in the Christmas play. That was my first invitation and initiation into public speaking. Also created on with our steward board, our trustee board, junior stewards, and junior trustees. I got a little pushback. There was a little pushback at the time it got started because, you know, of course, Zionites know discipline says you have to be 21 to be on the trustee board. So, but I just told them, well, yeah, that may be the case, but we have to teach them leadership. We have to hear their ideas. And the young people enjoyed it. Going in, one of the young people who was on one of the junior stewards went in with the steward board as they was counting money after service. And they was like, wow, I didn't realize that's what they do. I thought they just went back there and talked after service and hung out. But it brought to them like, wow, what they do is really and vitally important to the church. So I take them into consideration, hear their ideas. When I have trustee board meetings, I do maybe a 10, 15-minute meeting after service on a Sunday, tell them what we're about to do, ask them for ideas. But they're very engaging with it. And they're excited. They're excited about, they're glad because they have, at that moment, they actually say they have buy-in into their church and what their local church is doing.
Excellent. Very good. Next, do you feel comfortable connecting with your youth and young adults personally? If not, why not?
I would say I do feel comfortable connecting with them personally. One thing that I had to realize is that I cannot hide behind the collar. I'm a pastor, but I'm also a young man. And with me pastoring a church that is full of young people, I had to be approachable. I had to be in a position where my young people felt comfortable enough with me to bring whatever it was that they were dealing with or that they're going through at the time and be open about it, be honest about it, and not think that I was going to be judgmental or preach that hellfire and brimstone. Okay, you're having sex before marriage. You can still get things right. It's not the worst thing in the world because you're having sex before marriage and all of that thing, and all of that stuff like that. And we have, you know, as pastors, have definitely got to be careful that we don't scare our young people away from God, being so judgmental and so harsh, I would say, with pushing the Bible down their throat and not bringing them back to realization. We have got to be real with them. And we've also got to understand that we were once there too. We're saved, we're sanctified, we're doing all these things now, but we have done some of the same stuff that they are doing too. And just because we're in this position now, we cannot get so holy that we forget what God saved us from. We can't do that. We've got to look at where we come from and allow our young people to know. That's that transparency word again. We have to be real enough with ourselves to be real with our young people. And that's why I feel as if I'm comfortable at this point connecting with my youth and young people because I'm real with them. You know, I'm young. I keep it 100. You know, that's what we do. You have to do that.
And I would say that Pastor Ballard is on point with what he just said. But I think that the church that a lot of us grew up in is a church that you don't talk about what you did, that we present ourselves more in a perfect way, that we've always done the right thing. But the truth of the matter is all of us have been young. And all of us have done things that we're not proud about. And I think that it's those things that we share with young people that will cause connection, relationship, and really will help people to see the human side of their pastor. Sometimes people have the tendency of putting pastors on pedestals as if Again, they're perfect people, always have done the right thing, but nothing is further from the truth. I think that sharing with people our mistakes, our failures, is far more beneficial than just sharing all of our successes, the things that we did right. I think that young people stand to gain far more from us when we're transparent about the failures.
And Doc, if you would allow me, one thing that also does, we always preach about being a witness. That allows people to see what God could do.
Right.
If you are real with what you've done and you look at the place where you are now, that allows your young people per se to see, okay, he was once there, now God has worked on him.
Right.
And now he's in this position there. We can't just preach about it and not be an example of it.
Right.
And the only reason you can be a witness is because of what you've experienced. That
Definitely.
qualifies me to testify and share what he's done. And if he can do it for me, he can do it for anybody.
Right. And that's very true. I was able to get into ministry through a youth Bible study. So with youth Bible study, if they consistently called me Reverend Shantae, that there was a disconnect at times with the reality conversations. So it was okay to call me Miss Shantae, because in that miss, with leaving out the Reverend and putting in the miss, it brought it to a informal but formal balance, if that makes sense. And when I start talking about at 17, I had my son, right? The reality is, it's somebody out here that may possibly be in that same situation at 16 or 17. But here's this grown woman saying she had a son at 17, but she doesn't look like what happened when she was 17. And how did I get there? Well, not just because I had a praying grandmother, because I didn't always listen to my grandmother, but there were some lessons taught to me that when times got hard, I was able to depend on. And that's how I make my connection with young adults and youth, by being transparent about who I was and who I still am.
Yeah, real quick, I think that's everything everyone said is spot on. And I want to include as well that, the authenticity is I think one of the biggest parts. You have to be able to connect before you can correct people. And in us as pastors, being ourselves, Rev, Doc, how people call you, when we are still yet ourselves, because one thing I do know, young people can tell when you're trying too hard to be cool or trying too hard. My young people know, that people, when it comes to rap music and stuff, they're going to talk about Drake. They're going to talk about Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B. Look, I'm Biggie, Tupac. I'm just telling them that's just me. I have no problem with the stuff they listen to now. I'm like, yeah, that's what I listen to, but you got to listen to some original stuff. And they tease, they laugh, but they know that, Reverend Miller's not trying to catch up with us in our musical genres and movies and stuff, but yet he's relatable enough that we know we can talk to him. We can speak to him. He wants to be right there with us, but he doesn't necessarily need to be in our house, because I do believe young people, they want that one person who can be even keel with them. So you know what? I know we can talk Marvin Gaye. I know we can talk about something else, but if I need someone I can go talk to and address, I know I can talk to my pastor. And it's funny because they hear me say something like cool beans, lost in the sauce. They'll laugh about it. And they say, nah, pastor, you got to say the new stuff now. But they still yet appreciate me being myself. And I think that's vitally important because sometimes, and it's not all the times, pastors, just like parents, you can miss being a parent because you try so hard at being your child's friend. And then the child won't separate them. Whereas you say, no, we can hang out, we can talk, but I want them to be able to say, yeah, I really talked to somebody about this. And hey, but definitely transparency is one of the biggest factors as well.
Great. Thank you all for your answers. So as I mentioned before, this working together, it's two-sided. I mean, well, all generations. It takes everybody. So what I want to ask you is, whether currently receiving it or not, what do you need from your younger members the most? As a pastor, what do you need from your younger members the most? Or if you don't have that many younger members, what do you need from young people within the denomination or within your community? What do you need?
I need for my young members to continue to not be afraid of my position. Do not be afraid of Reverend Ballard. Reverend Ballard is still a human being. If you have ideas, bring those ideas to me. If you want to do things, I love to know or see that you want to do things. I want you to be involved. I want you to be engaged. I want you to make church as cool as you want it to be, because really that's the way that the church needs to go in this hour. We need to make church more attractive to young people because we're losing their interest. Tradition is wonderful. Tradition is great, but there's also ways that we can do tradition that will be attractive to young people. You know, we still need to understand the meaning of tradition. We still need to understand the importance of tradition. But just because we always done something one way doesn't mean that changing it won't work. There's some stuff that we can do differently. So I need you to be real with me. You want me to be real with you. I need the same thing from you.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the struggle for a lot of pastors, is being upfront and honest with the pastor. And part of the problem might be with that, maybe being in the Methodist tradition, we have that itinerancy. So the young people start, well, you're here now, just when I start to get comfortable, oh, my pastor get moved. So they have to start all over again, that trust. And one of the things I think, you know, I always make it intentional to ask the young people, how are you doing in school? Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing good. No, how you really doing? What are your grades looking like? How are things going? And they never like to cross that bridge, because the mentality is mom, dad, grandma already got on me at home about it. They already did. And if I tell the pastor, I already know you're going to get on me about it too. But I do that because I graduated in high school. Out of 125 people, I was number 123. I had a 1.12 GPA coming out of high school. And then the Lord blessed and opened doors in junior college, and later on D-Min. But I want to be able to tell them, hey, let's talk. I've been there. And I didn't realize I got to junior college that I tested for dyslexia. So here it is, 18 years of my life going through school. Nobody, of course, learning disabilities is not talked about in the Black community for some strange reason or another. So I didn't find out until I get to junior college. So now I get the opportunity to talk to them and say, hey, there might be a reason why you're failing history, a reason why you're not good at math. And trying to press upon them, and definitely later talking to their parents, grandparents, hey, maybe you should get your child tested. They could be autistic. There could be some learning gaps there. I mean, little things that I think that need to be asked. And our young people, they're going to need to be transparent about, because being illiterate, that's real. That's a real thing. That's not a virus that you catch. That is legitimate, that you can, it's an inherent gene that you can have. And I think getting them to be true and honest about what's going on in their life. And as my parents and my grandmother would say, yeah, you learn them songs real well. If you learn that math like you know them songs. But the understanding is the song I'm listening to. So I'm learning that. And but to sit down and write and try to I couldn't do it. So I think it's key if they are honest about what's going on in their personal lives and what they like to do different in the church.
I'm absolutely horrible when it comes to technology. As a matter of fact, if any of you went to my Facebook picture, that's a picture from 2016. So again, terrible with technology, social media. But what I'm experiencing is young adults in our church are helping and leading their pastor when it comes to technology, social media. Really, people look at Union Wesley and what we're doing. When you see things like that, that's not me leading that. Those are young people that know about social media, the impact of it, that are working cameras and things like that. So what I have done is established a meal that I provide for them every Wednesday, where we eat before our Bible study. And we engage in some interesting conversation around the meal. And you'll discover that ministry sometimes happens in some of the most unlikely places, like sharing a meal. The conversation, the dialogue, the things you talk about, the life that you share. So I'm blessed to be able to have young adults to be able to do that with. They help me, and it's not always about me helping them.
Excellent. Excellent. Before we move on to the last question for our pastors, well, the last individual pastor question, I just want to take a pause and let everybody know that if you have questions, everybody who's watching on Facebook, if you have questions or comments, I see you all have been engaging so far, and thank you for that. If you have questions, type them in the chat and we'll get back to them later on at the end. We're kind of nearing the end. We have one last question for our pastors, and it is, what's one thing you would like the younger generations to understand about their pastors?
We get it.
What's one thing you would like your younger generations to understand about their pastors? Go ahead.
We get it. We know, we understand, we feel you. We know what you're dealing with. We know what you're going through. And although we're in the positions that we're in, we were once in your position. We were once in your place. We want you to be a part of every single thing that we have going on. Yes, we get up and preach. Yes, we get up and shout. Yes, we get up and holler, but we are still humans. Just because we were saved by grace and all these different things, we preach the child sermon, we wear a collar, we are still humans. Do not be so afraid of the clerical side of us that you forget about the human side of us. We're still humans.
I would say that we want our young people to know that we need them. That, it's not just about doing church with seniors or those that are the adult age. But if the church is to have any future, we must engage all ages is what we must do. So again, my prayer is that they would know that they're needed, their gifts are wanted. The Bible says that your gifts will make room for you. And there's plenty of room in the kingdom for our youth and young adults. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Anybody else?
For me, for the younger generations, I'm looking beyond the walls, because the question says they're pastors, but I'm looking at the youth that don't have pastors, or the young adults that don't have pastors. And I want them to know that many pastors stood on the corner selling drugs, just like they're selling drugs on the corner. The reality is everybody's been delivered from something. My deliverance may look different than your deliverance, but it's deliverance. And when I talk to youth in the community, when I give out face masks and talk one with another to the youth in the community and young adults in the community, the perception is that I'm untouchable, I'm unreachable, because pastors have been put either on a high pedestal or social media have dogged out some pastors so bad that the word pastor is affiliated with cheating, misleading, misunderstood, untouchable, every negative content you can have. But it's when you be real with the youth outside the church, beyond the walls, that they see something different about pastors. that they see something different about the kingdom, that they see something different about Christ. So that's what it means to me for younger generations to really understand and grasp that it's not just about those four walls that we were residing in a couple of years ago. I'm about to say a couple of years because it feels like we've been outside the church for more than a year. But the pastors of today, the youth of today, the young adults of today need to engage in conversations that let them know that no matter what your situation is, you can be better and you can do better without feeling like they're at the worst part of their life and they're nothing.
I would say also to pastors to let our people know, hey, I don't know everything. You know, oftentimes, historically in the African American community, the pastor was the smartest person in that community. He was the doctor, the lawyer, the pharmacist, the psychiatrist. But I think pastors, a lot of us have to be honest and transparent and tell, I don't know everything. There's a lot of things that I don't know about certain things going on in today's culture and society. I may know a lot, but there's still a lot of things that we don't know. And sometimes there's such an expectation, as we said, pastors being on pedestals, pastors having all the answers. And I think part of responsibility to pastors is to say, every now and again, when you don't know something, tell somebody, I don't know, let me look it up. Let me find out the truth behind it. Let me dig a little bit deeper. Hey, come and talk to me about this. What is this all about? I think that's key. It goes right back to being authentic in our transparency, because sometimes people don't come to us because we can come off as if we know everything. And because there's a difference between being confident and being cocky. And we have to be able to make sure we present the confident level that we're confident about what we know and confident about what we don't know.
Thank you. Okay.
The young adults earlier said that they love Jesus and trap music, right? I want them to know that I love Jesus and Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Hey, I love Earth, Wind, and Fire too. I like them too. I got that from my dad. Okay, great. Thank you so much, pastors. I am going to keep you on, and I'm going to add the young adults. If you all are ready, I'm going to add the young adults to our conversation. And I would like to ask you all this one last question. Actually, we have one question in the comments. Again, if you're watching and you have questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the chat, and we will get to them in just a couple of minutes. So the last question that I have for all of you that I want each of you to answer briefly within 2 minutes or less. How do you believe we can most effectively and efficiently work together to edify the kingdom? How do you believe we can most effectively and efficiently work together to edify the kingdom? If you want to take a moment to think about that, you can. I am actually going to go in order so that it's not too crazy. And I'll go from, I guess on the screen, it's my right. My right. We will go to Reverend Ballard.
I would say the best way that I think that we can work most effectively and efficiently is finding a happy medium. If tradition is one thing and new age is another, find a happy medium somewhere in the middle that is still attractive to young people but still satisfies the taste of our seniors. There is a way that we can do that. We don't have to completely take tradition out, and we don't have to completely put new age to the side. We can incorporate both of those together and figure out the best way to make our ministries move forward.
Great. Reverend Shante.
Well, I have to also agree with Pastor Ballard. To come together, we have to do it together. We have to come in a happy medium, but also respect each other boundaries, right? I'm not going to always get it because I'm not going to always get it. But you're not going to always get it, or the youth are not going to always get it because they're not going to always get it. But if we can respect each other's boundaries, and it was said often throughout the conversation tonight, have a conversation. Let's talk one with another. Let's come in the middle and meet in the middle and see what we can do together to work it out. It may take more. I heard today in the meeting at work, it may take more than one conversation for that one situation, right? But what we tend to do is have an attitude at times, what I say is what I say, right? Everybody, what I say is what I say. But what I say is always not right, right? So if we can come in the middle and meet in that middle and have conversations that has resolve. To talk about it is one thing, but not to have a resolve is something totally different. So if we can have conversations that have resolve to them. I mean, they don't have to go into the discipline, but they have to really work to make the kingdom better. Because at the end of the day, it's all about kingdom building, right? So if we can't come together to do kingdom building, then what are we spinning our wheels for?
Good.
I would say that remember that we're on the same team, that we're not on opposite teams. We're on the same team. And let's not let the enemy cause division when it comes to our not agreeing on everything. I think one of the signs of the Holy Spirit is the Holy Spirit brings unity. And I think that we can find a common ground on just about any issue if we really want to. So again, I would say that let's be on the same team, let's work together. And that means that sometimes things will have to be different for each one of us, for us to really find a middle ground for moving church forward.
I would say for everyone to be impactful, make an impact in whatever ministry that which you are doing. One of the things I like to say, I told my youth director, I tell my young people to go out there, be actively involved. Here's someone said earlier, just because I bring the idea doesn't mean I want to do the idea. It's just a real good idea, which I think is awesome, because that lets you know that individual knows their strengths and weaknesses. My strength is creativity. I can bring a great idea to the table, just don't put me over it. You put somebody else over it. So one of the things I always tell my young people, young adults alike in the ministry, they say, Reverend Miller, how far can we go? How much can we push the envelope? I said, you can go out as far enough until I can reel you back in. Because indeed, I want to feel uncomfortable to an extent where it's just not crazy, but I want it to be an effective, impactful ministry. I'm not gonna breathe down your neck. I'm not gonna be watching over your shoulder the whole time. I let you be creative and do it. And I think one of the things that can make us effective and efficient ministries is not to be micromanagers. If you tell a young adult, a youth, or director, hey, I want you to do this, and you step back and say, no, this is you. Now, if you come to me and say, Pastor, I got an issue, I got a problem, then I can step in and help. Other than that, because I know sometimes it happens, we as pastors, we can kind of be looking at something like, oh, I got to bring them back. That's not my theme. That's not the motto for the church right now. The missionary tea about to happen. I need to bring. No, we just need to step back and say, do you? And then at the end of it, be ready to sit down for the post-con. Hello, somebody? So after it's over, now when we sit down, now we're going to talk about it. Don't come in and say, oh, it was great. No, there were some problems. And I think that's how we can work together, by opening up that door to being honest and transparent and letting people really do ministry. And my last point is this. The one thing I've noticed and learned about young adults and youth, and someone kind of one of the young adults hit on it earlier, they want to do ministry. That's it. They really want to do ministry. They ain't worried about responsive readings. They're not worried about having to sing in the choir. And honestly, they're not worried about putting on white and putting on a red or purple stole. They just like, look, are we doing ministry? Or they would just come and sit down here for this meeting for 2 hours and me give you $35 for a stove. They're like, are we going down to the homeless shelter? Are we feeding the hungry? Are we going and check on some kids in foster care? They really want to do ministry.
Great. Thank you so much. Malik?
Oh, it's on me?
Yeah.
Because he was talking real good. I want him to keep talking. But I would say, remember why you're doing it. Remember the reason behind what you signed up for. Remember that you signed up not just to get praise and adoration towards you, but everything that you do is actually giving praise and honor back to God. Mm-hmm. I tell everybody in my media ministry, I understand when pastors going off, he preaching, you want to lose your mind, but you got to understand that holding that camera, that's ministry, because you're giving the sight to somebody who's not there. So everything that you do, remember that you're doing it to glorify God. And I guarantee you that the kingdom will grow because we're doing everything with the mindset that I'm doing this to give praise back to God. I'm done.
Katrina?
Yeah. All right. So what I believe to be most effective and efficient working together to edify the kingdom, I think there's multiple things that are foundational. Just real quick, I'll say, scripture talks about the least of these. And I think it's really important that we all acknowledge that every single one of us are the least of these. It doesn't matter how much money's in our bank account, how many degrees we do or don't have, what people we rub shoulders with, what big wigs we know in the community or whomever. It doesn't matter what we have tangibly or intangibly or don't have. I think when we recognize how much each of us are the least of these, we can start to look at each other differently and recognize, as it was mentioned a moment ago, that we are on the same team, that we are not on opposite teams as much as it may feel tense sometimes, because there will be those disagreements and opposing views and approaches and things. But I would say that another foundational thing I would say is meeting ourselves where we are. When it comes to operating in togetherness collectively, it's really dependent on what we do in our individuals, in what we're doing individually. So I think in us meeting ourselves where we are, know where we do and don't have it to give, in every essence of what that means. I won't break that down because limited time, but I think it'll help us to know where our capacity lies, where our stamina is and our endurance, in order to advocate for ourselves and advocate for each other as we work together. Yeah. And then the third thing I would say is extending grace if we want to work most effectively and efficiently. I'm a daughter of a former pastor. She's retired. And she went into the ministry when I was a teenager. And so just seeing how much time, effort, or energy really goes into things from a clergy perspective, and not to be biased, but just to see it from both sides. Clergy is working really hard and really just trying to understand, and all of us are gonna miss the mark. So laity have to extend grace to clergy, and clergy need to extend grace to laity, and laity need to extend grace amongst each other, and clergy extend grace amongst each other. And that is not to give anybody a pass, to make excuses for anyone, but just really being fair. Just really being fair and leave room and space for us to miss the mark. But in doing that, that's going to require us also holding each other accountable with honesty, respect, direct communication, and love. So that's what I would say to that, some foundational ingredients for most effectively and efficiently working together.
Great. Chris?
Okay, kind of a loaded question, but I'm going to start off with saying honestly communicating. Obviously that's how things work. Everyone staying in their lane and respecting it. No more being voluntold. Like, I'm tired of, if nobody else steps up, hey, you do it. Nah, I'm not with it. So I think those things right there are I think that's how we can and also remembering that we're all here for the same purpose, like, please, to build up the kingdom.
Right. Absolutely. Go ahead, Tiana.
So the scripture that comes to mind is, for him the whole body joined and held together by every support ligament. That runs in my mind when we talk about the church. And I can agree with you, as I said before. Stay in your lane. I know I was called for the youth. Wasn't called for children, wasn't called for young adults. I was called for the youth. And because I know that, I can stay in my lane. But there's some people who just feel they was called in every aspect. And to be honest, you weren't, right? So I feel like if everyone just stayed in their lane and stayed in the lane that God called them in, listen, we could work together and efficiently to edify the kingdom of God. Because listen, what I know for myself, I could wheel these youth in, right? I could get them going. I could get them coming to church. Can you? No, you can't, because that's why I'm in this position now, right? So I often look at that, and I just really think that's very important. If we stay in our lane and be who God called us to be, we would definitely not have a problem. And yes, as I said before, we can all learn from each other. I can learn from a seasoned saint just as well as they can learn from us. But it all goes into the church is dying. So it's kind of best if you just get someone who can get the youth in and keep the youth engaged, because it's easy to get them in, but can you keep them engaged? Because as I said, I'm zoomed out, do Zoom for work, school, church. If you ain't keeping me engaged, my phone is going on mute, my camera going off, and I'm on the next call. I'm not paying you no mind. And that's just realness. Church, camera off, mute. Hello, what you doing? And that's just, I'm 18 and I'm not the only one. So I just feel like if you just keep the people in their lane, if the people know what they were called to do, where they were called to serve, then we can definitely edify and build up the kingdom of God.
Yeah, I watch it, because I was going to say, be careful, because you're going to get a lot of messages of people asking if they can borrow you for their churches to engage their youth. But be careful. Okay, go ahead, Rashard. Close this out, I guess, with this question.
Wow. Everybody, I love what everybody said. I would say that having an open mind and having the right heart posture would definitely work effectively. The open mind is both ends, with the pastor and the church, or the congregation, well, the youth rather. I would say that we could listen, constructive criticism, but it's a time and place. I don't need you to rebuke me in front of everybody, because then that's going to push me out of the church. And that's not only with me, that's with even adults, that's with anybody, any age group. With the heart posture, if you're doing something and you don't have the right heart posture, what makes me really upset is like, how are you going to tell me how to do something, but your heart isn't right in the right spot, So that goes hand in hand with being, open-minded, having the right heart posture, and doing everything that we need to do to edify and uplift the kingdom.
Right. These are all amazing answers. You all have been amazing. There was just one question that came up in the chat, and I think this is for our younger people. If you're willing, somebody's asking, do you have a tech training for those who need it, the seniors? Who is willing to take on that question? Malik, yeah, that's Malik's alley. Go ahead.
Absolutely. What you need done? No, because my department ranges, I am 25. So my previous head was in their 60s. So I had to take on a media team that was, pretty, I don't want to ever use the word basic, but they was, skilled in small areas. So taking them from where they, is that me or somebody else? Taking them from where they once were to where they are now, it was a process of breaking it down in layman's terms. So I have no problem reaching out and helping anybody. I actually get phone calls and emails weekly to help out. So there shouldn't be no problem with teaching and helping out. Just reach out.
Well, there you have it. Just reach out. Just ask. If you need something, just ask, and they're willing to help you out. Well, that is it, I believe. If nobody else has any other comments or anything that they want to share, I don't see any questions in our comments on Facebook that are actually questions. So that's it. We can gather a lot from what we heard today. It's my prayer that each of us take back what we've learned about one another to our local churches and begin effective communication with our own young adults and with our own youth and with our own pastors and our own elders. Listen, church, we have work to do. So let's try to do our best to do that work together. I would like to thank each one of our panelists for their openness and transparency. That word transparency came up a lot this evening. This work could not be done without your personal engagement in ministry. I want to thank my presiding elder, Reverend Dr. Evelina Huggins, for allowing the Baltimore District Young Adults to have this forum. Our time together has been so rich and so productive. So now it's time to act. But I encourage you, don't let the conversation stop here. While yes, we have representatives from each generation and the needs are individual specific. So if you have one youth in your church, talk to them. If you have 2 young adults, take them to lunch. If you haven't talked to your pastor lately, reach out. Listen, change begins with intentionality. All right, so let's do this work together and let's upbuild the kingdom together. So thank you to every one of you who has engaged with us tonight. This work would not be possible without your investment. And so with all of that, thank you. And we're praying for successful outreach in your ministry. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Y'all take care, everybody.